We are looking at the commercial real estate landscape of Phoenix, Arizona. Beneath the surface of routine property transactions, a highly coordinated mechanism operates to systematically dispossess owners of their commercial assets. This case study examines an ongoing civil RICO litigation. The plaintiffs allege a sprawling enterprise executes property theft by manipulating municipal codes, falsifying infrastructure maintenance, and exploiting local tax lien procedures. The enterprise relies on a specific structural paradox. It uses the state judicial system to formalize the theft of real estate, while simultaneously weaponizing administrative court rules to block the targeted victims from mounting a legal defense. The victims sought relief in the federal judiciary, but the district court dismissed their RICO claims. The court cited the Rooker-Feldman Doctrine, a rule that prohibits federal courts from reviewing state court judgments. To understand how a federal court could be forced to dismiss allegations of complex racketeering, we have to step back and deconstruct the physical and legal machine that engineered those underlying state court judgments. The legal standard for an association in fact enterprise under the Supreme Court's ruling in Boyle v. United States requires no formal hierarchy. It demands only a common purpose, relationships among its members, and sufficient longevity to pursue its affairs. The operation has specialized nodes. Legal architects initiate sham foreclosures and shield operators. The municipal bridge leverages city officials to manufacture code violations, generating financial distress. Finally, acquisition shall LLCs acquire titles, liquidate assets, and launder proceeds into offshore accounts. This decentralized multinodal structure allows the enterprise to execute complex frauds across different jurisdictions. Because the nodes operate independently on paper, the structure is highly resilient to traditional, single-actor legal challenges. This blueprint shows the commercial property at 13810 North 47th Avenue in Phoenix. This is where the enterprise initiates the physical distress necessary to force an owner into default. The process begins by manipulating routine public infrastructure contracts. City of Phoenix COMP contracts are extended and modified to create illicit slush funds, which then finance the installation of covert command nodes within the target buildings. Operatives covertly sever the building's potable water service. They install lockable curb stop caps and spoofing devices to fake municipal water usage, disguising the shutoff under false work orders that claim routine valve replacements. Over a period of 154 days, the water shutoff yields a specific physical consequence. The water seal inside the plumbing T-traps evaporates entirely, leaving the pipe as a completely open conduit to the municipal sewer main. This schematic illustrates the weaponization phase. Operatives program the JACE 8000 hardware to deliberately generate sustained negative air pressure, actively pulling gas from the sewer main. Forensic records show this release of hydrogen sulfide was timed between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. In 12 separate instances, occupants reported nausea, dizziness, and life-threatening respiratory illness, symptoms that physically removed the owners from the property during the critical windows for legal response. This engineered crisis forces the owners to abandon the property and drains their resources through medical emergencies, setting the stage for the enterprise's legal dispossession phase. With the owners incapacitated, the operation shifts to Mojave County to execute the legal foreclosure phase against the victim's remaining portfolio. The enterprise uses its shell companies to acquire tax lien certificates on the victim's now distressed properties. This text shows Arizona Revised Statute 42-18202, which dictates the strict legal requirements for tax foreclosures. The law mandates that a purchaser must mail a notice at least 30 days before applying for judgment. The enterprise systematically bypasses this critical step. Their legal architects submit proposed default judgments to the court. These documents falsely imply that all statutory notice requirements were fulfilled, committing extrinsic fraud upon the court to secure a ruling. Based on these fraudulent default judgments, the county issues treasurer's deeds. This transfers absolute legal title of the properties directly to the enterprise members. These state judgments are not legitimate. They are weaponized administrative instruments procured entirely through procedural fraud. The First Amendment and the Due Process Clause guarantee citizens meaningful access to the courts to mount a legal defense. To finalize the theft, the enterprise must block that access. At the state level, court clerks systematically rejected over 18 pro se filings submitted by the victims. The stated reasons were pretextual, citing minor formatting errors or demanding immediate payment of filing fees. The clerks aggressively pursued these fee demands while the victims had formal fee waiver applications pending, exploiting the severe indigency caused by the enterprise's own fraud. The victims were attempting to navigate this bureaucratic blockade while simultaneously dealing with a life-threatening medical emergency directly linked to the hydrogen sulfide exposure. At the federal level, a minor disputed fee triggered a digital lockout from the PACER electronic docket system. This blinded the plaintiffs to the status of their own litigation. These administrative hurdles effectively seal the courthouse door. By preventing any defense while allowing the enterprise to proceed toward final judgment, the procedural rules function as a one-way valve, facilitating dispossession. Blocked at the local level, the plaintiffs are currently seeking intervention in the federal appellate courts to bypass the corrupted state proceedings. This flowchart demonstrates the Rooker-Feldman Doctrine, establishing that lower federal courts cannot act as appellate reviewers for state court judgments. The district court rigidly applied this, viewing the RICO claims as a prohibited collateral attack on the foreclosures, dismissing the case. The plaintiffs have presented a counter-theory to pierce this federal firewall, dubbed the Hartl Doctrine. The Hartl Doctrine argues that judgments procured by extrinsic fraud, such as intentionally skipping the 30-day statutory notice, are void ab initio, meaning they are void from the very beginning. Because a void judgment is a legal nullity, there is no valid state judgment to trigger Rooker-Feldman preclusion. Therefore, the federal court retains jurisdiction to hear the RICO claims. The Hartl Doctrine attempts to reconcile strict federal jurisdictional limits with the necessity of prosecuting multinodal criminal enterprises that co-opt state courts. The alleged RICO enterprise relies entirely on using the presumed legitimacy of state courts to launder its property theft. Without the state's stamp of approval, the extortion falls apart. Rigid adherence to the Rooker-Feldman Doctrine in cases of extrinsic fraud grants de facto federal immunity to fraudsters sophisticated enough to manipulate local administrative procedures. Federal courts must pierce the veil of fraudulent state judgments to protect the fundamental integrity of the judicial system. True access to justice requires the federal judiciary to recognize when its own procedural doctrines have been weaponized to shield the exact corruption they were designed to prevent.